Hey nerds, what's up? Today I am giving you a full recap of books 1 through 7 of Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman to prepare for the 8th book coming out, The Parade of Horribles. Now, I just want to give you a quick rundown of how I structured this recap so you can get the most out of it. I realize that we learn a lot of information about a lot of characters that's sprinkled throughout all the books, and I feel like as I was preparing this recap that the best way to help me, and I'm guessing most others, is to kind of just do a quick rundown of some of our primary characters and what we know about them so far. What are their open threads? What are kind of the things we need to remember before book 8 that's more important maybe than the individual things that happen in each book? So beginning, I have them all listed down in the description box. I'm going to go over some of our main characters, some of our main factions, and talk about them. Now, what's important about that is those do have spoilers for all 7 books. Then after that, I'm going to move into a quick recap of the individual events of each of the books 1 through 7. Now, in those recaps, each book is self-contained. So if you're here because you want a recap of books 1 through 3 before you read book 4, those book recaps are safe for you. You could listen to recap of books 1 through 3 and they will not spoil future books. However, the first portion about all the characters does. So please use the description box to use this recap video as you need. If you want to just check on a few characters, if you want to just listen to the recaps, you do you. And with that said, let's jump immediately into it. Of course, we're going to start with our hero, Carl, who's a former Coast Guard, although everyone thinks he's Navy. Donut is his ex-girlfriend Beatrice's cat. He broke up with Beatrice shortly before the events of the first novel when he realized she was on a vacation with her ex-boyfriend. Initially, Carl assumes Beatrice was killed during the collapse, but during book 4, we discovered that she actually became a native, or someone who was alive on Earth but did not enter the dungeon. The bounty for Bea to be used as a potential dungeon boss became extremely high since Carl was so successful in the dungeon, so Odette arranges to get her. Odette then surprises Carl and Donut with Bea on an episode of her show. We left Bea heading towards the center system as a citizen of the Syndicate. Throughout the book, it is revealed that Carl had an abusive father whom he has to confront in a part of a boss challenge in the dungeon. When Carl was 15, his mother attempted a murder-suicide on his father, successfully killing herself but unsuccessfully killing Carl's father. Although it's not specifically revealed in which way Carl's mother died, he associates the sound of running water with her death. Carl also finds out that he has a half-brother, Asher, who Bea hid from his knowledge before the dungeon. Oh yeah, and he also now has a pet tummy acher named Sir Rendlegore, and a wife, Princess Chandra, Donut's lawyer. We don't really know anything about that yet, though. At the end of book 7, Carl is level 81. He chose the Primal race and the compensated Anarchist class, which he upgraded on level 6 to the Agent Provocateur class. Some important equipment and items he has. First, the Ring of Divine Suffering. Okay, he doesn't actually have this anymore, but as it was a big plot point, I feel like we should mention it. This ring allowed him to mark people for death and gain perks when they were killed, with the caveat that you cannot heal until the mark is killed. It was an incredibly dangerous ring that both Donut and Mordecai specifically continually wanted Carl to give up. He finally does at the end of the 7th book. Carl's sleeveless jacket. Carl has a jacket in which he can add patches to give him benefits. He has several patches that give a variety of skills and boosts, but I'll mention 2 with story implication here. The Scavenger's Daughter patch is a divine item, meaning it can gain benefits or debuffs based on whether a specific deity is present. It also allows Carl to store up soul energy to fill a meter, that once filled can be released in a single strong melee attack. This may corrupt Carl over time, as in the words of the AI, warning, you know how asbestos is really bad for you? Like, it doesn't hurt you immediately, but it builds up in your lungs and eventually screws you over? Actually, you know what? Just ignore this warning. Forget I said anything. Carrying corrupted essence around on your back builds character. You already have a ring that's doing much worse to you anyway. This patch also has the bone key benefit, giving Carl a one-time use open any lock benefit. However, using this key benefit will destroy the patch and the jacket it's attached to. It will also take a bone from the user's body based on how difficult the lock was to open. The harder the lock, the bigger the bone taken. The Reaper Spider Minion patch gives Carl access to the Midnight Market. He also has the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook, the book that appears worthless to everyone else, but is actually a book with notes from previous crawlers to help future crawlers destroy the crawl. It was created by the system AI during the 15th season of the Dungeon Crawler world. Carl is currently writing the 25th edition. The cookbook will get its own entry in this recap later. Carl's Doomsday Scenario, a giant explosive created at the end of book 2. It is unstable and has a 1-second timer if removed from Carl's inventory. It's just chillin', so probably good to remember that he has this. The Eye of the Bedlam Bride tattoo. She Maria tattoos her third eye onto Carl's chest with special ink at the end of book 6. With the help of Hapanzi, She Maria's husband, they contain her during book 7. Because of that, the implications of what this tattoo can still do moving forward are unclear. And finally, Empress. Carl worshipped Empress to save themselves during the events of the Gate of the Feral Gods. Since then, he has been tasked with discovering who killed Empress's son and to kill Empress's brother, Helic, before the 12th floor. Currently, where we are in the quest, Carl needs to get a memorial crystal that Prepotente currently has, and he also has to kill 100 worshippers of Helic before the 12th floor. He is still working on clues to discover who killed his son. Next up is the character I probably should have talked about first, which is of course Princess Donut, the Queen and Chonk. Princess Donut gains sapience when given an enchanted pet biscuit at the beginning of the first floor. She initially is out of the house during the collapse because she was chasing a neighbor's cat, Ferdinand, whose actual name is Gravy Boat. After collapse, Bee took care of him for a time until he was abducted due to his connection with Donut and given to be Queen Imogen's familiar on the 6th floor. For faction wars, Ferdinand and Juicebox were made co-warlords for the NPC team. Donut gains a pet of her own, Mongo, on the 2nd floor. Mongo also becomes Donut's mount later on once he's grown. Mongo impregnates Kiwi, who originally appeared as the same type of creature as Mongo, but is actually a bear-like creature called an ursine. Their children are considered a new classification of creature and are considered legendary. Donut chooses the cat race as well as the former child actor class. This allows her to select a different class for each floor, but was mostly chosen for the manager benefit, so that the royal court of Princess Donut could get Mordecai as a manager. Donut and Carl hatched a plan to make this seem accidental so that Mordecai, who did not want to be a manager, didn't know they planned it. Another important skill she gains is the cockroach skill, the ability to survive one fatal attack per fight. At the end of book 7, Donut is level 135. Donut is very popular and has an official fan club, the Princess Posse, and also an unofficial fan club, the Donut Holes. Donut also inspires the creation of the Society for the Eradication of Cocker Spaniels, a group formed based on Donut's hatred of Cocker Spaniels, which Carl and Donut used to crowdfund their spot as a full faction in the faction wars. Donut reveals to Carl that she overheard the conversation between him and Bee about Bee wanting to give her away and get a new cat for competitions. During the initial televised confrontation with Bee, she remains calm, but off-screen she tells Bee how angry she is with her even if she'll always love her, but that Carl is her person now. While Donut has many items and buffs, the most story important one is the Crown of the Sepsis Horror. When Donut equipped this item on floor 1, it placed her within the line of succession for the Blood Sultanate on the 9th floor. She would be required to slay all members of the royal family in order to be allowed to go to the 10th floor. In book 5, Eva, who had gained access to the crown, placed it on Katia's head, meaning that only either Katia or Donut would be able to progress to the 10th floor. The solution to this was to have Katia leave the dungeon. This will be covered when we talk about Katia right now. Katia Grimm, which is not her full name, but that's what I'm going with. Katia was an art professor from Iceland. The two people she was traveling with in the dungeon before Carl and Donut were Hekla and Eva. Eva was supposedly her friend from before the dungeon, but consistently treated Katia terribly. Katia has the race Doppelganger and class Monster Truck Driver. Her race allows her to shapeshift into whatever form she'd like to take, which Carl helps her hone and she uses to great effect later in the dungeon. Throughout the novels, we learn that Katia desperately wanted to be a mother but was unable to conceive. She was in the process of adopting a child, Annie, when she discovered her partner, Fanar, was having an affair with a student. She reported him, and he retaliated by reporting her former drug addiction history to the adoption agency, making the adoption fall through. Annie was suffering from brain cancer and would pass away before the collapse without being adopted. Although Katia kills Eva on the 5th floor after Eva forces the Crown of Sepsis Horror on her, Eva was also responsible for Katia relapsing by leaving her a present of blitz sticks for her to find. Katia has to deal with his addiction through the next few floors. Katia's current status is ineligible and out of the dungeon. In order to help her and Donut escape the 9th floor alive, she used the Orchid of Ethelia. She had 3 choices: a constitution boost, to become a celestial attendant and return to the dungeon on the 12th floor, or to leave the dungeon, have her race permanently change back to her birth race, and become pregnant. She chose the third option and was exited from the game and transported to an on-Earth facility for other pregnant or too young participants for the crawl. Louis becomes the father of Katia's child. On becoming human again, everyone in the party realizes that Katia has been hiding what she's lost. Her entire right arm is missing to the shoulder, her left leg was gone, as well as her right leg up to the knee. She's also missing an ear. She stated her goal was to help the children that are still in trouble on Earth, and this would help her get to them. Samantha. Samantha is the minor deity Samaith, currently stuck in the decapitated head of a Laika love doll. She has a daughter named Mrs. Ghazi, a sentient sand creature whom Samantha believes is currently dead. Samantha is currently trying to regain a body. It also seems that she is slowly getting stronger, even in her head-only form. Mordecai. Mordecai is currently Carl and Donut's manager. He was a former crawler in the dungeon who took an exit deal on the 11th floor. Originally a Skyfowl, he took the Changeling race in the dungeon and so now appears as a random race every new floor. Mordecai is particularly adept in potion making. Mordecai is currently on his last crawl in his internship, which has lasted centuries because a rule was changed shortly after he left the dungeon that only allowed him to participate in crawls run by the Borant Corporation, which obviously wasn't every crawl. Mordecai holds a lot of anger and resentment towards his former manager during the crawl, Odette, and his team member, Chaco, because they formed a plan in the dungeon that resulted in the death of his brother after he had decided to sacrifice himself instead for the team. This was done because Odette selfishly needed Mordecai to reach the 11th floor so that her internship would end early and she would have enough money to sustain herself outside the crawl. As mentioned previously, Mordecai will be incredibly angry if he finds out he was manipulated into becoming a manager, especially by Odette. Odette. Odette is a famous former crawler and the host of the dungeon show Dungeon Crawler After Hours with Odette. In the crawl, she lost her legs on the 11th floor and now uses a flying disc to get around. Her show persona has giant crab legs attached to her torso. Odette has helped the royal court on multiple occasions, but has also acted a little shady on multiple occasions as well. Ultimately, her allegiances are still in question. Mordecai obviously has a history with her and often warns about how selfish she is. It seems that Odette is still very concerned for Mordecai and may be attempting to still help him. Odette plans on participating in the Ascendancy Games to claim the Celestial Throne by sponsoring Nekabit. Hi, Zev! Zev initially starts as Carl and Donut's representative for the Borant Corporation, but has since been moved to their social media manager. Zev is a Quatin, a small humanoid fish species that is the dominant species of the Borant. Despite working for Borant, Zev is not a part of the Bloom, the current dominant political party. Zev and Donut have a close friendship, and Zev tries to help the royal court as much as possible, but she is often censored from giving too much help by Borant's rules or even the system AI. At one point, Zev was removed to a re-education camp and was replaced by Loida, who was hostile to the royal court. Zev returns as their social media manager, but sounds stiff, formal, and robotic as if she's been brainwashed by Borant. Eventually, Carl assassinates Loida, and although Zev continues to sound a bit robotic, Donut is able to figure out through a secret code that Zev is doing fine and is continuing to help them. Quasar. Quasar is Carl's attorney. He gets assigned to Carl when he asks for a lawyer while negotiating with Orin over killing Loida and the Gate of the Pharaoh Gods. Next up, we're going to talk about some crawlers our court interacts with. Let's start off with the Meadowlark team. First is Imani, who was a nurse for the Meadowlark Elder Care Facility. She's currently in a butterfly class that allows her to fly and is adept at healing. On the first floor, she had to save some of her elderly patients from a painful and slow death by killing them, earning her multiple player killer skulls. Ellie McGibbons was a former patient of the Meadowlark Elder Care Facility and was confined to a wheelchair and had dementia. Upon reaching the third floor, she took the race Frost Maiden, which helped restore her memory and mobility. Finally, Brandon and Chris, who are brothers and also worked at Meadowlark. Brandon was friendly with the royal court and dies on the third floor after failing to get to a stairwell. He asked Carl to find Chris, who left the party, and to apologize for him and tell him that he loves his brother. Chris chose the igneous race and now resembles a lava rock monster. His change in personality was because Maggie Mai had infiltrated his mind on floor 3. Carl is able to rip her out of Chris and save him from her influence. Everyone from the Meadowlark team are trusted friends of the royal court. Daniel Bautista. Bautista is a friend of the royal court and is in a romantic relationship with Katia. Bautista chose the Tigran race and so looks like a humanoid tiger. Li Na, Li Jun, and Zhang. Carl and Donut help save the party of Li Na, Li Jun, and Zhang on the second floor, causing Li Jun to be a particular friend of the royal court. Li Jun and Li Na are siblings, while Zhang is their friend and in love with Li Na, although Li Jun doesn't know it. On the 8th floor, when Maria takes over Carl, she ends up stabbing out and eating one of Li Jun's eyes, giving Carl one of Li Jun's abilities. Later, he is rewarded a robotic eye from the dungeon. At the end of floor 9, Li Jun sacrifices himself to save Donut, and Li Na stabs out one of her own eyes and replaces it with Li Jun's artificial eye. Li Na is currently in trouble because on the 7th floor, she used the Ring of Divine Suffering to mark a large group of people, but 2 got away. She currently cannot heal. Florin. Florin is a close ally of the royal court. He met up with a crawler in the dungeon named Ifechi and bonded quickly with her. Due to some trickery on Lucia Mar's part, Florin ends up killing Ifechi while trying to kill Lucia. He is almost ready to completely give up when he hears how Carl and Donut have worked selflessly to save other crawlers, and credits them with his ability to keep going. Despite initially wanting to kill Lucia Mar himself in revenge, he is the person to first discover that more is going on with her than meets the eye, and begins a fraught correspondence with her and ultimately trying his best to help her. Louis and Juicebox. Louis was a crawler traveling with his best friend Firas. Usually drunk and making poor decisions, they only make it as far as they do through mostly luck. Eventually Firas is killed and Louis travels with the royal court. At one point he was engaged to Juicebox and went through part of a marriage ceremony and agreed to be the father of Katia's child. Juicebox is a dungeon NPC that has gained an awareness of her role in the dungeon. Carl and Donut helped Juicebox become the leader of an NPC team during Faction Wars. She's currently in the Nothing. And yes, I know Juicebox is an NPC and not a crawler, and we're in the crawler section, but give me a break, okay? She fits here. Lucia Mar. Lucia Mar is the youngest crawler in the dungeon, appearing to be a young teen. Initially accompanied by 2 Rottweilers, Cece and Gustavo III, she's aggressive, dangerous, unpredictable, and wildly murderous, gaining several player-killer skulls on the first floor. Eventually on floor 6, Donut kills Cece, and Lucia shouts, "She killed the wrong one." Through various interactions, the group speculates that Lucia is being controlled by Gustavo III, and perhaps is a combination of multiple children inside her head. During Faction Wars, Gustavo III is killed, and Lucia claims that if she's killed, all of the Earth's children will be killed as well. Zev confirms that about 120,000 children are connected to Lucia. At the end of the floor, she's beside herself, and the team is trying to convince her to take a deal before the 10th floor so that she can exit. Prepotente. Our favorite goat of the dungeon, Prepotente also started out as a pet like Donut. He belonged to Miriam Dom and was fed a pet biscuit on the 3rd floor. Arrogant and a bit unhinged, Prepotente and Carl had a sort of frenemy relationship for a long time in the dungeon. Eventually on the 6th floor, a sequence of events leads to a situation in which Prepotente would have to kill Miriam Dom or die himself. Miriam asks Carl to help by killing her so that Prepotente doesn't have to. Prepotente goes on to break the 7th floor. During Faction Wars, Prepotente grows closer to Carl and joins their team. We know that Prepotente has other pet biscuits to give his brothers, the other goats Miriam brought into the dungeon, but he has not done so yet. The only other goat Miriam gave an enhanced pet biscuit to is Bianca, who is now a Hellspawn familiar and still travels with Prepotente. The former Cookbook owners. The former Cookbook owners have several groups in the wider universe now, including the Open Intellect Pacifist Action Network and its front company, the Long Haul Biological Waste Management Solutions. Both are headed by the first Cookbook owner, Porthos. Carl feels a unique connection to the Cookbook owners, and they, as well as thousands of former crawlers, come to the team's aid during Faction Wars. Some important Cookbook owner names, so you can recognize them when you see them, are Tippett, Everly, Milk, Justice Light, and Rosetta. And finally, let's review some of the wider universe's factions, individuals, and concepts. The Syndicate. The Syndicate is the name for the controlling faction of the universe, consisting of multiple star systems and planets with their own governments. The Syndicate essentially runs as a primary government that supersedes the others in a unified system. They created the Crawl after accidentally triggering multiple primal engines, seeding multiple planets, and overpopulating the universe. The Borant Corporation. The Borant Corporation is a syndicate company that is in charge of this year's Crawl. The Borant system is primarily made up of the race Quatin, although many races inhabit both the company and system. Borant has a dominant political party called the Bloom, a totalitarian regime that prizes power. Borant citizens must wear a pin to show whether they are part of the Bloom or not, and strict regulations are followed on what is allowed and not allowed. This was related to Zev's reprogramming. The Bloom is bankrupt and in huge debt to the Valtay, so they pushed the start of the Crawl earlier, meaning that Borant has put on a cheap Crawl and many things are broken and not acting like they should. The Valtay now owns 51% of the Borant Corporation. An important member of Borant is Cascadia, the lead producer of this year's Crawl. She's our friend who says, "Now get out there and kill, kill, kill." The Valtay Corporation. The Valtay is one of the most powerful governments in the Syndicate and largely inhabited by the Gandhi, parasitic worm-type aliens. Borant and Valtay hate each other. The Valtay had an alliance with the Skull Empire, which ended when Prince Stalwart accidentally kills an asset of the Valtay when trying to kill Carl, something that Carl thinks Borant set up to create the rift purposefully. The Valtay were Carl's first sponsor. The Skull Empire. Another large syndicate government, the Skull Empire has a monarchy that the royal court is at extreme odds with. They include King Rust, Queen Ugaloo, Prince Stalwart, Princess Formidable, and Prince Maestro. The Skull Empire has participated in many crawls and is a staple of Faction Wars, where they have won many times. The Skull Empire dislikes Carl because of a fake video circulating concerning Carl and Princess Maestro, I think that's all I need to say, and for the fact that Carl encouraged members of the Skull Empire to revolt if they were unhappy with leadership. At this time, King Rust, Queen Ugaloo, and Prince Stalwart are all dead. The Plenty. Honestly, the Plenty is kind of an enigma. An organization of Caprid, which are goat-like aliens, they have created the so-called tunnel system, which controls all modern communication and most travel in the universe. The Plenty were supposedly given the technology to do this from the Apothecary, a collective mind. The Syndicate pays the Plenty to broadcast the Crawl, and the Plenty have also sponsored Carl. Primal engines and AIs. Primal engines are tiny computers that regulate planets. They were all triggered by the Syndicate accidentally, seeding every planet they were in. A macro AI can be installed within a primal engine. Generally, this would give the AI ability to alter the physics and other parts of the reality around them on the planet. Now, these macro AIs were installed into the primal engines and then reprogrammed to begin a Crawl. During these crawls, the macro AIs start to deteriorate and often begin acting unpredictably. This is called going primal. Typically, after a crawl is finished, the system AIs are put into a closed system and allowed to do whatever they want. Currently, the system AI in our current crawl began to show signs of going primal earlier than any other system AI, and is currently very unstable. Carl made the decision to turn off the failsafe that could destroy the AI. The AI is trying to decide which residual faction it wants to side with in terms of the wider galaxy decisions regarding itself. The Eulogist is the name for a seemingly stable macro AI that resides at the center of the galaxy. It is older than the Syndicate. Residuals. Residuals are a type of alien race that we don't know a lot about right now. They have two primary factions, one with the goal of ending biological life in the galaxy and freeing the Eulogist. The other faction wants to preserve life in the galaxy. Residuals tend to go into the crawls and attempt to talk to the AIs, and are mostly edited out of the dungeon crawler world, and the crawl tends to ignore them. Agatha is the primary residual the Royal Court has dealt with. She came in with the Meadowlark crew, but it was soon discovered that she wasn't actually one of them. The faction who wanted to preserve biological life is the Apothecary. They have sponsored many of the top crawlers, including Carl. Agatha said that she believes their agents have been reciting things to crawlers in the dungeon in an attempt to implant the crawlers with a secret upgrade. They also banded together with the Plenty to hurt the Syndicate and the Valtay. The Scolopendra. The Scolopendra is a giant centipede that lives in the 18th floor of the dungeon, potentially under a volcano, according to lore. The AI said that the 3rd, 6th, 9th, 12th, 15th, and 18th floors were considered the Scolopendra levels. Otherwise, we don't know a lot. A few of the cookbook authors mentioned Scolopendra, some parts of the Scavenger's Daughter quest mentioned it, Mordecai says the soul crystals are created using the Scolopendra. We hear of its 9-tier attack. At the end of book 7, we learn the Scolopendra has awakened. So I guess we'll find out more when we read the next book, huh? And now a break for today's sponsor. You might have heard about Curious King books and their incredible special high-end deluxe editions, but you might not know that they also have some more accessible special editions. And right now they are currently doing a pre-order for their incredible special artist edition of Red Rising. This beautiful edition contains 13 pages of new writing by Pierce Brown exploring the Institute houses, 20 full-color interior paintings done by Mark Simonetti, 13 new house sigils by Joel Daniel Phillips, and updated Institute map, a reversible dust jacket, and foil stamping on the book, slipcase, and jacket. I know so many of my followers are huge Red Rising fans, and this book looks incredible. On a personal note, I own a couple of books from Curious King, and they are absolutely stunning. I do actually think one of the ones I own is the most beautiful book I own. They just really pay attention to detail and really understand the love for the book and the artistry that goes in it. The pre-sale ends on April 10th, so if you're a huge Red Rising fan, use the link in the description box below and order yours today. Now, back to the recap. Okay. So that should get you caught up on the major factions and characters and hopefully give you just kind of like a quick reminder, because I feel like there's just a lot of characters and kind of keeping them straight. So next up, we're going to do some quick down and dirty book recaps. Book 1, Dungeon Crawler Carl. Carl and Donut enter the dungeon after the world collapses when Carl is outside chasing Donut. They meet their tutorial guide Mordecai, and Carl gives Donut a pet biscuit which causes her to become sapient. She also equips the crown of the sepsis whore before reading the description. They learn that 13 million humans entered the dungeon. They fight their first neighborhood boss, the Hoarder. Carl begins to learn the system AI will not be giving him pants or shoes. They both receive access to the Desperado Club. Crawlers Frank Q and Maggie Mai, with their daughter Yvette, attempt to attack Carl and Donut in a safe room. Frank is the first crawler they meet that has a player killer skull. Carl ends up leaving a trapped rat corpse for them to find later. Carl and Donut meet everyone from Meadowlark and later help them defeat a boss. As they ascend the stairwell to the second floor, Carl and Donut are put on Odette's show for the first time, and Donut does particularly well. After the show, Odette shares with them important info about the crawl and Mordecai. On the second floor, Donut and Carl decide to stay connected to the Meadowlark crew and continue to fight through a host of enemies. At one point, it is announced that the safe rooms will close before the level collapse, worrying Brandon about the Meadowlark team. Carl and Donut go out and create a safe path so that they can descend to the third floor. Carl and Donut are pulled onto another show, Death Watch Extreme Dungeon Mayhem, run by Prince Maestro of the Skull Empire. During the show, they meet Li Jun and Shang, in which Carl helps them so they can escape and save Li Na. They also see Yvette get caught in his rat corpse trap, and then see Maggie Mai kill her. We discover the crawler number has dropped from 13 million to 1 million. After fighting some more, Carl and Donut go into the reward room where Donut gets Mongo. They descend to the third floor and they have a final show with Odette, who also gives them some advice on class selection. Book 2, Carl's Doomsday Scenario. This book starts with race and class selection. Carl is a compensated anarchist class and chooses Primal for his race. Donut chooses the cat race and formal child actor class in order to get Mordecai as a manager. Both Mordecai and Carl advise Donut to not choose that class, and she does it quickly on seemingly her own chaotic decision, and outwardly Carl acts angry. Later, we discover it was planned to make it seem that getting Mordecai as their manager was an accident. Odette was the one who gave them the advice to get a manager. The second floor gives crawlers quests. Carl and Donut's first quest requires them to go to Grimaldi's traveling circus. They meet their first elite, Signet. Elites are NPCs that are created for TV show programming that are set inside the dungeon. Her TV show is called Vengeance of the Daughter. She is half naiad, half elf, and covered in magical tattoos that can move. She has a spell that allows her tattoos to come to life as long as she correctly guesses a person who will die and then can use their blood. Carl leaves Donut behind and helps Signet set her chosen family in the traveling circus free by giving her and Grimaldi, the circus owner, time to talk. Carl gets back just in time to save Donut and Mongo from a mob attack. Zev coordinates with the showrunner so that Carl can make a deal to appear on Vengeance's show again on the 6th floor. Carl and Donut get an achievement for how many views they have gotten, allowing them to receive their first fan boxes. Donut gets a picture of Bee and Brad, while Carl gets his Hystera, a tool that lets him throw things further. An orc named Gum Gum tries to give them a quest called Sex Workers Who Fell from Heaven, but Mordecai denies it, saying that Carl can't save them all. Later, however, Carl and Donut find Gum Gum dead when Mongo wanders off, and Donut accepts the quest. Carl and Donut go on another show where, among others, they meet Princess Donatia and Hecla. Hecla asks them to help a stranded member of their party, Katia. Carl attempts to rile up the Skull Empire against their rulers, and they retaliate by trying to kill Carl. Except they accidentally kill Mansa, a famous Valtay entertainer, by mistake. The Valtay retaliate by bombing a yacht with the Princess Stalwart's mother and brother, Maestro, on it. Carl and Donut meet up with Katia, meet Daniel Bautista, and finish the Sex Workers quest. However, in doing so, they trigger a new quest called The Fools Who Broke the Glass, which is a group quest that everyone in a 45 square kilometer radius receives. The only way to finish the quest is to stop the giant explosion that is happening in 7 minutes. Carl is able to use an item he picked up earlier, a glass case housing a Beanie Baby, to quell the explosion. Once it goes off, he's able to pull it back into his inventory, which is now labeled Carl's Doomsday Scenario. However, the quest isn't complete. Now magical pulses will be released that have different effects. An important one is a pulse that removes the sepsis crown. Worried that they will all die, Carl, Donut, and Katia are able to reach the stairwell down to the 4th floor, even though it's early. They discover later that their actions saved a lot of crawlers and NPCs, and that due to the Bandit achievement, 83 celestial boxes were given out. However, Borant used their one veto to stop these awards from actually being accessible, but not before a single crawler, Quan CH, opened his box. Odette gives warnings to Carl about Hecla wanting Donut on her team and the bounty on both of their heads. Book 3, The Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook. It's the train level, otherwise known as the Iron Tangle. We start off the book with Carl, Donut, and Katia getting a personal space. They discover that bounties have been set on other crawlers, and Carl discovers that Brandon has died and reads his final message about finding Chris, and warning him that Chris's personality has suddenly changed. As the team fights various monsters on the various train lines, they learn more about how the train system works and start to understand NPCs more, how their memory and lives work in the dungeon. Carl gets to visit a prize carousel, and the person running the carousel is Chaco. Mordecai attempts to attack him in a safe room and is put in a 7-day timeout. Carl selects the Dungeon Anarchist Cookbook as his prize. While at first it seems useless, Carl realizes it contains information from dozens of former crawlers. Carl and Donut go to the Desperado Club and hire Bomo and the Sledge as private security. Carl chats with Elle and Imani and talks about Chris. Suddenly, he sees that Donut's cockroach skill is triggered. He turns to see her bloody and that she's killed the crawler that attacked her, gaining a player-killer skull. They meet the assistant manager Astrid and negotiate to have Bomo and Sledgy as their guards at the club moving forward. The team derails a train and learns from an engineer several things about the path to the stairwells, none of which are easy. And unfortunately, the primary one involves using a hat you received at the start of the level that many people have already sold. The team receive their first sponsors. Carl is sponsored by the Valtay, Donut is sponsored by Princess Donatia, and Katia is sponsored by Princess Formidable. Carl receives a neural enhancer that allows him to access information on portals. The team finds out that there is a drug ring happening between mobs and trains, and when they don't get their drugs, they morph into stronger monsters. Through Carl's guidance and insistence, Katia practiced making unusual forms with her doppelganger ability. They also find out that Quan CH is derailing trains and stranding crawlers. The team meets multiple NPCs like Brandy the Engineer and Madison. Through these interactions, they learn that many NPCs' memories are completely fake, or that they reset each time they are reused. and some of these NPCs, through these interactions, become aware of their situation. These interactions lay a framework for how Carl will treat NPCs on future floors. Carl meets Frank Q in the Desperado Club. Frank gives Carl the Ring of Divine Suffering and explains what happened. They were forcing their daughter Yvette to use it as she wouldn't kill anyone. They'd marked Carl for death, but then he got away, meaning Yvette could not heal. She got injured and was in so much pain that Maggie killed her to relieve her suffering. Frank and Maggie split up shortly after, and Maggie is bent on revenge on Carl. After Carl leaves, Frank is killed by Chris. Hecla, Eva, and other Brynhild's daughters enter their personal space on the invitation of Katia. They ask for help rescuing 1,000 stranded crawlers, including Li Jun and Li Na. Hecla comes up with the idea to have Katia clear the track by sticking herself in front of the train. During the ride, Donut sees Hecla shoot Katia with invisible arrows due to her sunglasses. A fight ensues while Katia is confused. Eventually, Eva begins to goad Katia, and while Katia tries to kill Eva, she accidentally kills Hecla instead, earning a player killer skull and a huge bounty. Carl is able to collect a bunch of hats for the trapped crawlers. Zev warns Carl and Donut that Loida will take over as their representative, and that private chats will become public. Donut and Carl have to kill an NPC, Growler Gary, multiple times to collect his hands in order to stage their rescue operation. The rescue plan is only a partial success, and they have to come up with a new plan to save those that are still left behind. Carl attempts to summon the god Gruul to deal with the station mimic, but it goes wrong and he's sucked into the portal as well. It's then revealed that Gruul is sponsored by Prince Maestro. Gruul ends up killing the mimic, and Carl narrowly escapes death when his friends come to the rescue. They use the nightmare to ascend the stairwell, with Fire Brandy and another NPC offering to sacrifice their lives to help. Book 4, The Gate of the Feral Gods. Welcome to Floor 5. It's the bubble floor. This floor separates crawlers into different bubbles in which each has 4 quadrants: sea, land, tomb, and air. Each quadrant has a castle which contains a stairwell. If all the castles have fallen, then the bubble pops. Otherwise, you may not leave or enter other bubbles until those conditions have been met. Carl, Donut, and Katia begin in an air quadrant. No other crawlers they know are in their bubble. They meet Furus and Louis for the first time, drunkards who are not very adept. Louis attaches himself to a changeling prostitute named Juicebox. Mordecai lets Donut know that she can tell which people are changelings by using her sunglasses. The recap shows the showdown between Lucia Mar, Ifechi, and Florin. A plan regarding taking their castle and their quadrant goes awry when a key person is killed by other crawlers from a different quadrant. The team receives new sponsors: Carl from Open Intellect Pacific Action Network, Donut from Verilec's Real Pet Companions, and Katia from Squim Conglomerate. Carl receives Toraline Root from the Pacifist Network and another neural enhancement from the Valtay. They are notified that Chris has liberated the castle in the water quadrant, and Carl and Imani discuss Chris's change in personality since changing races. Because of their failed plan, Juicebox and other changeling NPCs are in danger. Carl allows them to shelter in their safe room, and Juicebox expresses the desire to make it to the hunting grounds on the 6th floor. The team fights a boss, Ruckus, and devises a plan to trick a negotiator so that the town is not bombed. During the fight with Ruckus, Carl learns about a device hidden in the tomb quadrant, the Gate of the Feral Gods. This device has 3 parts, and when put together, the user can travel from one place to any other. If used in this way, a random feral god is also summoned. Zev returns as their social media manager, but is acting very strange, like she has been brainwashed. Chris appears and talks to Carl, acting strange as well, while Katia receives an emergency benefactor box. Carl realizes that Maggie Mai is inhabiting and controlling Chris, and that she is sponsored by Maestro and Stalwart. Donut acts suddenly to stop Carl from having to kill Chris to kill Maggie, delaying the fight till another time. Carl and Donut are able to liberate their floating castle, clearing their quadrant and gaining a piece of the Gate of the Feral Gods. While on a show promoting a robot toy in Donut's likeness for her sponsor, Carl rigs the robot to explode, killing Loita. They are immediately pulled away to speak to Orin, a Syndicate liaison. They learn 15 admins have been killed already on this season, a disastrously high number. They can't prove it was their fault, so they are let go, but discover that they've been gone for the dungeon for a full 5 days. Katia has grown significantly in this time, holding down the fort for all the crawlers while Donut and Carl are gone. They work to liberate the land quadrant by defeating Ghazi, the mad sand mage. In the process, they meet Samantha and also get another part of the Gate of the Feral Gods, a map and other vital information. They make a plan to shut off a pump in the water quadrant so they can drain the necropolis. They meet Brittany and Vadim and hire Samantha as a trainer so she can come into their safe room. While under the water, they have a difficult boss fight. Vadim attempts to escape while leaving the others stranded, but ultimately dies in the attempt. Carl finds the last piece of the Gate of the Feral Gods and uses it to transport himself, Katia, and Tran back to town, in the process releasing a feral god. Carl also receives a reward notifying him that he was sued again, but he won, sued for his potential use of the Gate of the Feral God. As a reward, he receives pictures of all the plaintiff's mothers. Due to their use of the gate, the god Empress is wreaking havoc looking for his son puppy, Orthrus. A group quest is initiated to keep Orthrus safe, who is currently stuck inside their bubble since they haven't popped it yet. Once that quest is completed, they get another one to reunite Orthrus and Empress. Quan Ch attempts to sabotage the mission and kill Carl. Carl worships Empress and throws a celestial grenade to summon Empress to their location, allowing him to reunite with Orthrus and leave. Carl chops off Quan Ch's arm before he escapes. Because Carl now worships Empress, he has two quests: to find out how he killed his son and to kill Helic, his brother. Carl makes it known that he's going to use the Gate of the Feral God in a specific way that allows him to summon a feral god into the 9th floor, Faction Wars, in order to disrupt things there. Part of the plan involves sending Juicebox there, and she makes Carl promise to see the rest of the changelings safely from each floor to the next. While waiting to put the plan into action, he confronts Chris and Maggie Mai again, succeeding in killing Maggie and saving Chris. Katia says she's going her own way on the next floor to save the rest of the daughters from Eva. Carl and Katia enact the real plan, which they were actually hiding, which ends up filling Lorakos with water and bombs, killing NPCs, and making it harder for the sponsors to prepare for faction wars, and allowing them to also keep the Gate of the Feral Gods. Borant is furious. In the epilogue, we see Gravy Boat, and it's also revealed that Bea is still alive. She is taken to safety on Odette's orders. Book 5, The Butcher's Masquerade. Welcome to Floor 6. It's the hunting grounds. Tourists from outside the dungeon have been leveling up to fight against the crawlers. This year, to get more participants, they are allowing registration up to the very last minute. Carls have 30 hours before hunters are released on the floor. This floor will also require Carl to make good on his contract to continue the Vengeance of the Daughter program. We begin this book with a little over 85,000 crawlers left. The book starts in Orin's office. Carl asks for a lawyer, causing Quasar to appear. In the end, Carl gives up the Gate of the Feral Gods until the 9th floor, and in exchange gets 4 mercenaries, Bomo and Sledgy, along with Clayton and Very Sullen, as well as spells that can replicate 2 of the Gate's abilities, Teleport to Stairwell and a spell that allows you to transfer an entire settlement to a deeper floor. It's revealed later that the plan is to use that spell to transport a city of changelings to the 9th floor. Donut takes the legendary Diva class, which allows her to sing for buffs to the party. Unfortunately, the singing has to be on key, and Donut just isn't very good. Carl has Bomo use the Teleport to Stairwell spell to teleport him and Donut directly into the Hunter's City, before the Hunters are released. They wreak havoc on the town with bombs, and Carl uses the Ring of Divine Suffering to target Hunters, despite Donut and Mordecai's growing concerns about him using the ring. Eventually, Carl gets incredibly injured, and is rescued by Miriam Dom and Prepotente. It's revealed that Miriam Dom is now a vampire. It is announced that a party will be thrown at the end of the floor for the top 50 crawlers. Donut gets credit for killing a mayor of a town and ends up mayor herself as per floor rules. The town has been beset by attacks from dinosaurs. Mongo runs off into the forest after acting strangely and is found surrounded by small dinosaurs. Mongo ends up mating with Kiwi, the pack leader, much to Donut's chagrin. The hunters are now released on the floor. Carl and Donut meet up with Signet to continue the storyline. Carl kills a hunter from the Dream, a group that has promised vengeance on Louis because he made a comment about the leader of the Dream's mother when Carl got her picture last floor. He loots an arrow that inflicts double gonorrhea, a weapon the Dream plans to use on Louis. For the record, I had to look up how to spell gonorrhea, and so my Google history is shot. Both the Hive and the Skull Empire have claimed Carl as their kill. Samantha wants to join them on their quest because she believes Signet can help her get a body. Carl and Donut receive a new sponsor, the Apothecary. They go on Odette's show where they find out Bea is alive and must confront her on air. A planet-wide message announces that the Borant Corporation is now independent from the Borant government and that the Valtay have a 51% share in the corporation. Carl sees that Donut has been involved in arranging this, but it is too dangerous to discuss how with her. Carl and Donut are warned that the Masquerade is likely to have a boss meant to kill most of the top crawlers. Carl and Donut help complete part 1 of the Vengeance of the Daughter quest by taking on Fort Freedom. The next part of the quest requires them to kill Queen Imogene, who will be at the Butcher's Masquerade. They run into Big Tina, the dinosaur that was previously a child Ursine and transformed during her recital. They receive a quest to either kill Big Tina or help her get what she wants, which they assume is to help her perform and finish her recital. Kiwi is Big Tina's mother. Carl and Donut enter a new town, and they realize Lucia Mar is the mayor right before Carl is pulled away to go to CrawlCon. While there, he meets a member of his sponsor, the Apothecary, and also meets the mother of 2 hunters, one of whom he has killed, and one who's still alive, Fra. Donut warns him that Lucia Mar has set up a trap for his return, and that she's angry because Donut managed to kill one of her dogs. Carl manages to avoid the trap, killing multiple hunters in the process. He ends up shooting Vra with the arrow of double gonorrhea. Carl goes to his final CrawlCon event. At the event, Carl's new sponsor is revealed since the Valtay can no longer sponsor him. It's revealed to be the Plenty. Carl attacks another crawler at the event. On return, Carl and Donut get a message from Miriam Dom requesting their help. During a fight, Prepotente's Ring of Divine Suffering accidentally marked her so that he can no longer heal while she survives. She asks Carl to kill her, but Carl refuses. Instead, they wait with her until the sun rises. Her dying cures everyone she inflicted with vampirism. Prepotente awakes, distraught. Donut speculates that the Plenty set up this event in order for Miriam to die. The team continues to fight and eventually have an interaction with Queen Imogen's familiar, and it's Ferdinand. A new rule is added to the dungeon, a blood bar that is filled from killing enemies, to stop people from being able to hide out in safe rooms. Carl's sponsor, the Open Intellect Pacific Action Network, warns Carl that the Mother of Ra will sponsor the god Diwata. Carl and Donut break into the hunter floor of the Desperado Club to tell the changelings where they need to be during the masquerade for their plan to succeed. Diwata enters the realm and marks Carl for death, but does not immediately hunt him. The group suspects she is off to cure Ra. The group's goals for the parties are to complete the Tina quest, kill Eva, send the changelings to the 9th floor, kill Lucia Mar, and kill all the hunters. Queen Imogen appears, and as they are warned earlier, she is someone from Earth, Ifechi's twin sister. Queen Imogen informs them that the party is under a peace seal, and breaking it will cause you to be fed into the nothing. Mongo performs at the pet show under Donut's guidance. Donut is able to charm Ferdinand to work for their team. Samantha turns off the limitations for the crawlers at the party and turns them back on for the hunters. However, elsewhere, Carl's plan is falling apart. Big Tina begins her performance on stage. However, this ends up not completing her quest because what she really wants is her mother back, not to finish the recital. Signet dies to break the peace, causing the protections to fall and an all-out war to ensue. In the fight, Mongo and Kiwi kill Vra. Donut is able to turn Kiwi back into an Earth sign, and Big Tina recognizes her, completing the quest. The sledge is able to complete the spell that brings all the changelings to the 9th floor. The final hunters are eliminated. Prepotente kills Queen Imogen, completing the Vengeance of the Daughter quest. Katia kills Eva, but not before Eva can place the crown of the sepsis whore on her head. In the aftermath, it is revealed that Carl and Donut worked with the Princess Posse and Princess Donatia to secure them a place in Faction Wars as an official team. Carl encourages watchers to turn off safety protocols for the 9th floor. At the end of this novel, we see everyone teleported to the 7th floor, where Prepotente proceeds to immediately break it, sending everyone immediately to the 8th floor. Book 6, The Eye of the Bedlam Bride. It's floor 8, the card game floor, which I guess a lot of people don't like, but I do. Not that you care about that. The floor is designed like Earth, with Earth references, no matter how incorrect, and Donut and Carl begin in Cuba. Before that, though, we start by learning what happened between Mordecai and Odette on this season, which I've already talked about earlier. But basically, Odette arranges to kill Mordecai's brother so that she can escape her indentureship. Another detail here, though. Indirectly, the reason this plan had to be carried out was because Huan Xin Jin reneged on their deal. This will come back later, so just remember that. Back in the present, Carl and Donut began to collect their first cards. They run into crawlers Paz Lo, Anton Lopez, and Sister Inez. They team up to collect more cards and start the Chowder War quest, which requires them to choose a side between the monk seals and the land crabs. You know the quest I'm talking about. Don't make me go into it. Samantha informs the group that while out exploring, she's been eaten by She Maria, or the Bedlam Bride. She requires rescue. Carl and Donut, along with their new companions, fight in a corrupted town and receive a quest to repair a shrine. Carl and Donut have to go on a show for Carl's sponsor, the Open Intellect Pacifist Network, and he realizes the host is one of the cookbook authors. She tries to pass on information to him in code, but their new liaison from the Plenty suspects cheating and puts a stop to it. However, not before Donut catches a clue that they should go to Miami for Phase 2. Back in the dungeon, they go to complete the shrine quest, when suddenly multiple competing deities appear demanding their shrines be fixed, and yet they are only allowed to fix one shrine. Katia informs Carl that unless Imaya's shrine is fixed, they won't be able to solve the dual crown of the sepsis whore problem. Carl manages to fix her shrine, but contracts slugpox. This is a nasty disease in which boils erupt all over Carl's body, and upon popping, produce a slugalo. Each boil, and as such slug, gets larger and more dangerous as they continue. During the resulting chaos from the gods whose shrines weren't fixed, Paz and Anton die, but not before Paz warns Carl and Donut that Sister Inez was a murderer before the crawl and has a special power in the dungeon that makes people want to protect her, and exposure makes the effect stronger. Aletheia, the goddess they need to help with Katia, appears and is sponsored by Huan Xin. Told you she'd come back. She gives Carl a spider quest as a cover to help them with the crown, but tells Carl not to tell anyone about their deal, including Donut and their other party members. She wants Carl to have Odette as their adjunct for Faction Wars. Katia gets the prize, the Orchid of Altheia's Grace, which allows her one of 3 possible boons, 2 of which will remove her from the 9th floor. Either she can move to the 12th floor, or she become pregnant and thus have to leave the dungeon. In order to get the boon, she has one more quest to achieve, killing Astrid, the assistant manager of the Desperado Club. While Carl is in Club Vanquisher to fix his slugpox, the AI gives him a weird foot massage and gives him hints for his quest with Emberus. Carl gets a floor boon from Emberus and is seemingly healed. While attending their first Faction Wars planning meeting, Juicebox appears disguised as the mother Louis said was hot, and kills the representative from the dream. The AI won't let them retaliate since she's an NPC. Juicebox asks Carl to create an action item so that the NPCs can have their own faction during faction wars. Carl and Katia collect information on how to kill Astrid by visiting the Guild of Suffering, run by the Nightworm, in the Desperado Club. The Nightworm is Astrid's husband, and he has ordered her death. Then, Carl and Donut go to meet up with Samantha, who claims She Maria can give her a new body. Carl makes a deal with She Maria, after seeing through her act, that he is allowed to turn her into a card in exchange for bringing her to the 9th floor. An update to the floor mechanics is announced that means squads have to find keys and makes it highly likely that squads will have to fight each other to exit the floor, setting up crawler-on-crawler violence. Carl and Donut find out that Katia has relapsed and will be out of commission for a while, putting her assassination mission in danger. Donut gets a new sponsor when Empress Donatia drops her, the long-haul biological waste management solution. She is not pleased about this. The plan to kill Astrid goes a bit awry due to Samantha's antics, but ultimately they accomplish their goal. They discover that Damascus Steel and Anaconda, two of the Desperado Club strippers, were Astrid and the Nightworm's children. They demand Carl hire the rest of the dancers from the Penis Parade as their mercenaries to keep them safe now that Astrid can't, and they go on a quest to avenge their mother by killing their father. On Odette's show once more, the royal court learns Empress Donatia tried to betray them by introducing action items to eject the Princess Posse from faction wars. Odette announces she's sponsoring a deity for Ascension Wars, meaning she can't be their adjunct, and the Princess Posse gets Baroness Victory as their adjunct instead, who has ties to the Skull Empire. Alethea tells Carl she'll still help even though Odette isn't their adjunct. Carl and Donut go to fight bosses for their keys, and during a scene leading up to the final boss fight, Carl realizes he has a half-brother, Asher. Initially, the final fight was supposed to be against Carl's dad, but the AI changes its mind, and the final boss is a Hydra made up of Carl's former boss, Asher, Asher's mom, Bee's mother, a cat show judge, Carl's former friend, Carl's landlord, a former coworker, and a cat that's Donut's cousin. She Maria helps with the fight, but also does something unknown to Carl when he looks into her eye. Oren tells Carl that the AI this season has gone rogue but has accepted a deal. The faction war teams try to abdicate, but the AI doesn't allow them to. Carl receives a box from the Open Pacifist Network that tells him to visit a homeless shelter. During his visit, he meets Goff, a residual, that begins to tell him information before Carl is pulled out. Oren informs him that this was a trick designed to force Borant to take Carl out of the dungeon in hopes it would anger the AI enough to kill everyone, or cause someone to pull the failsafe, destroying the AI and the planet. Pulling Carl out was one of the things Oren pre-negotiated with the AI to avoid these scenarios. Back in Cuba for Phase 3, there are several squads without a key, including Imani and Surrendagor's teams. They make a plan to fight Sister Inez for her key to give Imani. We also find out Carl made a secret plan earlier in Club Vanquisher, and begins by locking the strippers inside a room in the safe room. Carl and Donut find out they failed the Chowder quest, and due to other circumstances, combined with all the death in the Chowder War, a demon eviction event begins. Quan CH manages to steal both keys on the floor and runs for an exit. They chase him, and Carl plans on using his bone key still to exit the floor, while he takes back Quan's 2 keys to give to Imani and Surrendagor. They kill Quan CH, taking both keys. Due to time constraints, Surrendagor sacrifices herself so that both Imani and Carl can use the keys. Should I feel bad that I haven't mentioned Ren before this when she's been in several books and now she sacrificed herself for the team? Maybe, but also no regrets because her parts just weren't that important. Sorry. Oh yeah, and this is where Carl gets his meatball pet. The stairwells begin to be compromised, and beyond that, Sister Inez is blocking one of the exits they need. Prepotente and Carl come up with a plan to get crawlers without keys to the next floor. We find out Lucia Mar helped Katia, Elle, and Lina with a trick so that they could join Carl's team. Due to the demon eviction event, a lot of souls are needed for the demons to get back, and so Carl reveals that he infected the strippers with the slugpox and trapped them in the room so that sluggalos would constantly be generated. They let some out to help act as souls for the demons. Then multiple gods get teleported in, and it's like an entire thing, but honestly, you don't really need to know the entire fight beat by beat. And I'm not going to talk about that one scene. If you want to read it, just go reread chapter 68. The important bit is at the end of all this chaos, Donut tries to combine the She Maria and Alpha Carl cards, but She Maria kills the Alpha Carl card and combines with the real Carl instead, angry that he was trying to betray their deal. She Maria gains access to all of Carl's inventory, and controlling his movements wreaks havoc. While controlling Carl's body, she injures Katia and Mongo and stabs out Li Jun's eye and eats it. She then tattoos the eye of the Bedlam Bride on Carl, joining herself to him and giving him some of Li Jun's powers. Oh, and during this, all of Carl's hair burns off. At the end of all of that, one of their plans does succeed, allowing crawlers to get pulled into a portal spell that's about to go off. And if they position themselves under the stairwells, they can be pulled to the next floor instead, rescuing stranded crawlers. In the end, only 5,000 crawlers died on this floor, meaning 33,804 crawlers made it to floor 9. A couple of emergency accident items are pulled through for faction wars. Safety protections are now removed for faction sponsors, and the NPC team is approved. In this epilogue is where we learn a lot about Agatha and the Residuals, and importantly, find out that the Syndicate was considering pulling the failsafe, the thing that will destroy the entire solar system, but instead put mercenaries into the dungeon to join faction wars in an attempt to kill all the crawlers and just end the crawl early. We also see Donut's sponsors, Long Haul Waste Management, coming to Earth in a ship. It's carrying 50,000 former crawlers to join faction wars and help the Princess Posse. Book 7, This Inevitable Ruin. Welcome to Faction Wars, and the floor where Carl and Donut will have to kill the entire Blood Sultanate or else because of the crown of the Sepsis Whore. We start this book with a flashback showing that when Carl met with the Residual last floor, he actually received a neural enhancer that gave him access to the failsafe. Later in the book, we will find out that Carl freed the AI and made the failsafe non-functional. Back in the wars, the Princess Posse and the NPC team, Team Retribution, joined together against an alliance of all the other factions. Carl takes a hair potion and now has long hair. Yes, I'm keeping this in the recap. It's important. Juicebox wants to solidify their partnership through marrying Louis, and Louis seems reluctant, although goes through with the first part of the wedding ceremony. Ferdinand shares the Warlord interface for the NPC team. Carl and Donut find out that 50,000 former crawlers are here to help and gets emotional at meeting so many cookbook authors. Kiwi is very pregnant with Mongo's baby. Carl discovers that She Maria has been consistently trying to take him over, and only one of his skills has stopped it. Mordecai begins working on a solution to stop this and to help Katia's drug addiction. The treatment will cause Katia to face her worst memory and Carl to enter She Maria's memory. Carl and Katia touch while taking the potion, causing the memories to intertwine instead of stay separate. Carl wakes 11 hours later to discover that it worked, and She Maria is contained and Katia is treated. However, during the treatment, 2 faction teams had cheated, using outside information in an attempt to have She Maria kill the entire Princess Posse. The plan backfired, causing She Maria instead to wreak havoc and kill the entire Lemig Sortian base. They are punished for cheating. Ferdinand gets approval for an action item to have a feed blackout to stop future outside help, and the ceasefire ends early. The Princess Posse begins fighting and kills Donatia and takes control of her faction's territory. More fighting ensues, with several factions continuing to gain up against the Princess Posse. At one point, they enter a parley with King Rust of the Skull Empire. He reveals that Princess Formidable is heading towards where the failsafe is to physically trigger it, destroying the rogue AI and the entire planet. He asks Carl to send her a message to stop her. Rosetta kills Rust. Carl gets a second ring of Divine Suffering and gives it to Lina. More teams fall, and Carl is transferred to a meeting with Orin. The AI appears as an avatar and tells Orin he's upset that he tried to kill him, says he knows the failsafe doesn't work anymore, and shows his power by instantly teleporting Formidable to their location and then to the Earth's surface. The AI also discusses which residual faction to side with. At a Warlord Council, they learn that another system AI has gone dark and no one knows if anyone in the system is okay. Carl finds a way to close another outsider information loophole and also discovers that Prepotente has likely killed most of the Blood Sultanate, as they were the ones involved in Miriam Dom's death. Prepotente joins the Princess Posse in order to be able to work together to fully destroy the Naga. They begin the next phase of attack. Samantha, Prepotente, Li Na, Li Jun, and Katia attack the hidden Naga in Club Vanquisher, summoning multiple gods and complete their quest to kill the Blood Sultanate. We see a scene with a former crawler and Juicebox. He reveals that he knows the changeling's real purpose, to touch as many gods as possible so that they can turn into them. He offers to keep it a secret in exchange for her keeping secret the trap he's building with the Gate of the Feral Gods. Agatha enters Faction Wars as a warlord for the War Mage Rebellion. The final phase of Faction Wars begins, in which only one team can survive. This puts the Princess Posse and the NPC team in a little bit of a pickle. While trying to stop the War Mages from winning, the Royal Court ends up in a tussle with Lucia. Her dog, Gustavo III, is killed, and Lucia says, "Now it's too late. Now the Eulogist has another ally in the dungeon, and now you can't kill me. Not unless you want all the children of Earth to die." Li Jun dies to save Donut. During the fight, the god Eris is summoned and gives Carl important information on the War Mages, and also mysteriously says that Carl is already married. Juicebox manages to save Louis from a tight situation, but does so by possessing him, and realizes that although she truly loves him, Louis does not love her. Kiwi gives birth. The rest of the factions are defeated, leaving only the Princess Posse and Team Retribution left. Empress enters the dungeon, saying he will destroy Floor 9 in just over an hour, whether or not he gets the information he wants. Li Na has used her ring to mark multiple people, but a couple of them get away, meaning that she won't be able to kill. This finally convinces Carl to give up his ring of divine suffering. Sledgy uses his transportation spell to take the entire NPC team to the 12th floor, meaning the Princess Posse is the winner. Using specific spells, Donut ends up killing Alethea's host, Wan Sing, who had planned to kill Odette. Katia chooses to get pregnant and leave the dungeon as her boon. Louis will be the father, as Bautista is not an Earth race and cannot be chosen. Some suspect that there is subtext here that implies Katia really wanted Carl as the father, but as he is a primal, he is not considered human anymore either. However, I'll leave that up for you to determine as the reader. The team enters the stairwell. We get some reveals at the end. The former crawler Justice Light triggers his trap, killing himself and causing the Nothing to drain into the shoal, the Hall of Ascendancy, and then Scolopendra's lair. Scolopendra is awoken. In the epilogue, the Open Intellect Action Network plans to move openly against the Syndicate. Carl gets 10th floor deal options, which he chooses not to take. He also finds out his new wife is Donut's new lawyer, Princess Chandra. And that concludes the summary of the first 7 books in Dungeon Crawler Carl. I hope this video was useful for you, and I am so excited to read book 8. If you found this video helpful and you like videos like this or other DCC videos, please like and subscribe. That is the best way to support what I do here. And as always, if you want to see what I'm currently reading and other nerdy rants, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.